I'm non-zero sum James, your companion on this exploration of win-win games. In this episode, Andrew Tane Glen concludes his post, Why Cooperate?
The end of morality. No super defector can exist in isolation forever. Over the next hill, through the next forest, down the river, over the sea, are many other super defectors, each inculcating their own form of cooperation into their own subjects, each enjoying the fruits of their labour. And just as John D. Rockefeller answered when asked, how much is enough? Well, just a little more. The super defector sees their neighbours as more wealth and production to be brought under their control. To this end, cooperation between super defectors arises. Comparison can also be the thief of a super defector's joy. Stark disparity between socio-economic conditions can promote migration between societies, as well as provide the impetus for revolution or reform. In this way, less destructive competition between super defectors can also occur. Economic productivity plays a crucial role in military success, as well as in determining the conditions of a society. The cost of professional soldiers and their equipment, and of sustaining them often far away from home, is substantial. Roman orator Cicero described the sinews of war as simply money in abundance. In this way, we would expect societal reform that moves the needle towards greater economic productivity to also correlate with greater military success and competitiveness. But here we have what sounds more like an economic argument than anything to do with moral emotional dispositions. How can one bear any relation to the other? Well, Joseph Schumpeter argues that innovation, creativity, and entrepreneurship underpin the most successful and competitive economic systems. In his book, Capitalism, Socialism, and Democracy, he coined the term creative destruction to describe the driving force of these systems, characterized by new innovations, continually replacing older ways and ideas, seeing our needs met with ever greater levels of productivity and comfort. While Schumpeter argued that innovation was primarily the product of scientific advance mated to entrepreneurship, a kind of centralized institutional view, Edmund Phelps, in his book Mass Flourishing, argues that the strongest economic systems have innovation more widely distributed at a grassroots level throughout a population of capable, flourishing, free agents. Here we can begin to synthesize a combined moral and economic argument, being that moral emotional dispositions whose behavioral outcomes promote the recognition and maximization of the potential of all people as potential innovators and promote widespread flourishing, autonomy, and freedom would, on the above account, likely produce greater economic outcomes, and hence greater societal competitiveness than those that do not. In this we see a positive moral outcome, positive at least to us modern cooperators, as autonomy and widespread flourishing and general respect for the dignity of human life, occurring alongside the positive economic outcome. Now this should help us harmonise our modern morality with the economic outcome. In this way, it need not be one or the other. While this moral economic behaviour can be described in words, it is not simply a set of practical guidelines, nor simply a broader economic policy. This behaviour, as the outcome of our deeply held moral emotional dispositions, would pervade all of our interactions, underpinning nearly all of our practical and political decisions, broadly prescribing how we would treat others, how we should respond to the way others treat each other, and, most importantly, how we should teach or program our young to treat others. Implementation of this economic system as a set of rules without the deeper moral emotional foundation or without constant reinforcement would likely fail in short order, recalling the stability problem of moral reinforcement of the super defector. If it doesn't feel right, we'll likely do something else, unless prodded. In this sense, our desired actions must harmonise with our inculcated behavioural dispositions to be made stable and sustainable. So to finish up, what of our super defector? Now one might imagine a movie montage beginning with a singular super defector ruler and their many subjects going to war, winning more subjects, more lands. As time goes on, their power devolves, first to a few, then to many, as more and more people are brought into the fold as co-super defectors to maintain stability. At each stage, Greater economic productivity is achieved through greater autonomy and distribution of economic management. In parallel, the benefits of having more capable and flourishing people in the economy becomes apparent and is promoted, or otherwise naturally occurs through evolution. This gives rise to ever greater devolution of power to a rising technocratic meritocratic order, again, as economic productivity is selected for. The super defector incrementally loses their singular grip, being supplanted at each step by greater productivity and competitiveness through this naturally evolving process. Slowly, the stratification between those with lesser and greater power blurs, as it becomes no longer possible to sustain different moral considerations for different sets of people when anyone can succeed. Slowly but surely, the number of super defectors increases until we all have equal influence over the means of cooperation programming. That is, until everyone is a super defector, at which point no one is a super defector. We are all, in a sense, super cooperators. The story of morality is, of course, nothing like the montage above. The arrow of progress is not a straight line. Progress is rare. Collapse is more common in the arc of human history. But this is the nature of an evolving system. Modern life is as much the product of random chance and circumstance as it is the product of unique competitive advantage and fitness. Now, there is no ultimate form of economy or of morality outside of the context of our species. But within our species, for humanity, we can identify what brings from us the greatest economic productivity, and also identify a kind of flourishing and happy life characteristic of our form. It just so happens, or perhaps it follows, that these two ends of economic productivity and flourishing happy life come from the same place. This is not then an argument for mere cooperation, for us all to just get along in peace. It is an argument for super cooperation, to realise the potential of each other, even from a purely economic standpoint, and to work to create a society that maximises this above all else, and all else will follow.
I have to admit, when I first heard Andy's idea, it sounded to my modern ears a little cynical and gave me a feeling of mild dread. But over time, as he has explored the idea further, and as I've learned more about it, I actually find it quite realistic and rather hopeful in the end. So thanks to Andy for this fascinating piece and for adding your warm baritone to the podcast.